Paige Dimakos here with Keith Sanchez for the Draft Club. Welcome in, everybody. It's a little bit different than what you guys are used to. It's a little strange. I'm used to looking over here and seeing Keith, but he's in New Orleans. Keith, how you living? How you living over there in New Orleans? Because this is a little strange for me talking to you on a TV screen. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I'm doing good, right, out here in New Orleans, in Bayou country. We doing good, we living good, we eating good out here. We know how it is, and of course, like I said last time, we still setting trends. So that's what's going on.
Oh boy. Well, before this turns into a absolute off the rails New Orleans propaganda podcast, okay, before that happens, let's get into probably the biggest topic in college sports, and that is one of the most interesting players I can remember. This is my 10th draft cycle, Keith, and I don't remember a player being as polarizing as Travis Hunter, right? And it's because he is a guy who is playing for Deion Sanders. He plays with Shedeur, and he's the type of personality that he is, and the bravado, and then playing both sides. So he's coming off of winning a Heisman Trophy, probably one of the most memorable speeches I can remember at the Heisman Awards, including a 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot lyric drop for Lil Wayne, which was I don't know that anybody
which was New Orleans, right?
Okay, I knew this. I almost didn't mention it because I knew this was going to turn into New Orleans propaganda. But Lil Wayne was shedding a tear for those that were paying attention. That was pretty insane. So what I want to talk about, though, and what I want to focus is he won the Heisman. This team is not playing in a bowl game that really matters, right? They missed out on their opportunity to play in the college football playoff. But this is a generational, we throw that word around a lot in scouting, generational talent. He actually is a generational talent in that he plays two ways. He plays wide receiver and cornerback. And what I want to focus on with you, Keith, is which one do we want him to play in the league? Okay, so let's present both sides. Let's talk about him as the wide receiver first. So tell me what Travis Hunter does well as a wide receiver, and what did you see on tape this year?
Yeah, Travis Hunter has shown us and proven to us he's a flat-out playmaker at the end of the day, right? If the ball is around him in his vicinity, he's going up and get it. And we love spectacular catches, right? We love wide receivers that leave it all out there. We love those situations where they could be double covered, right? He's a guy that turns 50-50 catches into 80-20 catches where he's most likely to come down with the football. And you've seen Shedeur Sanders give him opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Go and check the first game of the season, right, against North Dakota State, right? Go and check these games throughout the entire season where he just simply made spectacular catches that normal wide receivers, I would even say good wide receivers, can't even get to, right? He makes those catches. He makes them routinely. That's why I think he's a great wide receiver. It's just those and the things that you can't teach with Travis Hunter. It's the instincts. It's the nuances. Who he reminds me of with the football in his hands is Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama. And if you remember Alabama, Jerry Jeudy, this dude was a guy that can stop on a dime. He was dynamic. He was explosive. He was hard to keep up with. I remember standing on the sideline, Paige Dimakos at LSU, and Jerry Jeudy made two of our defenders run into each other, right? And that's the type of stuff that stops happening once you make it to 8th, 9th grade, right? You don't do that in college. When you're talking about two of the premier programs, you don't get two LSU defenders to run to each other. But Jerry Jeudy did it, and I think Travis Hunter has that same type of capabilities.
Yeah, he's a special player, right? At both sides. Yeah, very special. And we've seen that version of Jerry Jeudy very recently. So I like the comp because Jameis and Jerry have had a nice connection over the last couple of weeks.
And yeah, Jerry Jeudy's best year, right? He's finally got a quarterback, and I think it's his first time in his career because he was in the dumpster fire that was Denver, right? Oh, well, they couldn't find a quarterback to save their life. But he finally has a quarterback that can sling the football, and I think it's his first time cracking over 1,000 yards.
That is correct. So the comp is very timely, Keith. It was a good comp to bring up. It was very timely. Let's talk about him as a cornerback because obviously these are two positions that I think of. Tariq Woolen is one of the guys that recently we scouted that very, very late on in his career, he transferred. He was a wide receiver and then started playing cornerback. There were a lot of question marks about whether or not he would be okay at that position, and has a lot of success early on in his career in Seattle, right? Especially with tracking the ball and catching the ball and intercepting the ball, right? So what are the things that Travis does as a cornerback that stand out to you? Because these are two positions that are highly sought after, they're highly paid, and we saw him make some spectacular plays this year as a corner, and I think he could play both sides, right? But what about this specific position stands out to you?
Yeah, it's once again, it's the instincts, the natural instincts, the things you can't teach. When you watch him jump routes against like TCU last year, right? And then games this year where he's leaving his wide receiver to go jump another route, right? And then if you do that, you better be right. I've been to practice, right? And if you take those chances, I can guarantee you better get your hands on the football, because if you don't, that might be your last time playing, right? So Travis Hunter knows when to take the gamble, and it seems like he's the type of guy that always cashes out, right? He does when he shoots, he doesn't miss, and that's a special thing. We love defensive backs and defenders that can get their hand on the football, and he's a guy that's so natural with it. You can see that him playing wide receiver helps him play defensive back, and playing defensive back helps him play wide receiver even better, because it almost seems like he knows what's coming, right? Like, hey, I know this route combination because I just ran it a couple plays ago, right? So I know exactly what to do at the end of the day. And I gave a comp, right? And this is get you a little fired up, right? The comp I'm going to go with it's a Richard Sherman as comp. And Richard Sherman, and I say that, and I think it's ironic because he was the same guy that criticized Travis Hunter, right? And about how he was an average wide receiver and he had things to say about him. I think eventually he squashed it, right? But you can't go off and say those type of things when Richard, at the end of the day, you were no spectacular athlete, right? Like you were not a 4-4 guy, a 4-3 guy. You were not
smart.
Thank you. You were smart and instinctual. And I asked him this: why can't Travis Hunter do the same thing? Why he can't I don't even say get by, but why he can't excel at being smart, playing in the cover 3 scheme, keeping his eyes on the quarterback and the wide receiver, and making plays on the football. And lastly, Paige, Dimakos, I'm going to wrap this up with this. We talk about corners, and you know me, tackling is not the highest thing that I need from a corner, right? But you know what it shows me? It shows me character. And if you remember that Baylor game, right? I don't think he had any touchdowns that game, but you know what he did? He made the play of the game. Baylor's on the goal line driving. He steps up on the 1-yard line. Him and the running back in the hole. He lowers his head to full-on make contact with the running back and gets the running back to fumble the football. That's a play that your linebacker's supposed to make, right? That's a guy that's leaving it all out on the field. That's
a football play, Keith. It's a football play.
You know, the thing is, Paige, is that if he doesn't make the play, we're not even mad at him, right? So that's not even a play that he was going to be highly criticized for. But you talk about a guy that leaves it all out on the football field. That's Travis Hunter.
Yeah, he's I'm having a tough time watching the discourse around him because of who he is as a person. I can't imagine hating on a kid that is that joyful. Literally, I can't imagine. He exudes happiness, and you and I talk a lot about this, just wanting to be a positive vibe, right? Wanting to be around people that bring joy and bring positivity. And man, this is a kid that has a 4.0, okay? Is going to graduate with a 4.0. Doesn't drink, doesn't party, doesn't get into trouble. What more could you possibly ask from the kid? Like, what, at a certain point, you just want to tear him down because he's so great. And I think the thing that I liked most about that entire Heisman ceremony was his mom's speech after he spoke. And it reminded me a lot of, if you haven't seen the Kanye documentary on Netflix, it reminded me a lot of the belief that Kanye's mom gave Kanye is that you can do anything, right? But every single day telling him he could do anything, even when they were living on the floor, didn't have shit, right? They didn't have anything. This single mom, she moves them to Georgia, like the whole story. I can't imagine rooting against this kid. Like, it's so bizarre to see the discourse around him. And that's before I bring up this horrible Heisman voter, there's one very important question that I need to ask you, and I need to put you on the spot. Since today I got to host at the beginning, okay? I have one segment that I get to host today, so I get to put Keith on the spot, okay? And Keith doesn't like when I put him on the spot, okay? He likes to sit in the middle a lot. Not sitting in the middle. Okay, you gotta pick a spot. You're not here to defend yourself, Keith, so too bad. Okay, pick a spot. He only can play one, and I'm not saying he can have packages or whatever, but if you're choosing, you're a GM, and you're selecting Travis Hunter. Is he playing wide receiver at the next level, or is he playing cornerback at the next level?
First of all, I'm not a guy that sits in the middle, right? And I'm going to show you I don't sit in the middle. I'm about to have this conversation. Travis Hunter should, without a doubt, play wide receiver in the NFL. He should be drafted as a wide receiver. It shouldn't be overthought. Take the guy as a wide receiver. We talk about playmakers. What do you want to do? let them get their hands on the football, and you can manufacture that with him being a wide receiver. We've seen it time after time playing defensive back, right? If you don't want the defensive back to make a play, just don't throw the football to him. I'm not letting defenses off the hook by not putting Travis Hunter at wide receiver, right? I'm making them feel the pressure. And if there are situations sparingly where Travis Hunter wants to play corner, I would let him play corner. Like, why fight it? And we sit in today's age, Paige Dimakos, where I don't know if you remember, it was just probably 10, 15 years ago where we said, oh, running quarterbacks, they're not a thing in the NFL, right? Like, they can't survive. They won't make it, right? We said that last year, right? We've been pounding the table for the past 20 years saying that running backs, we don't need them. They're not a thing. I'm tired of the draft community, right? And just people overall, even people that say that they're football people, boxing people in to what they can and can't do, right? Like, stop doing that. Allow people to be great. And we can't fall in love with stories of the conversation of, man, they fought through all adversity, and then on the same side, we're the people that's providing adversity, right? Like, we're 100%. Being negative and tearing people down and saying what they can't do, and we are becoming the obstacles that they have to overcome. So I would play Travis Hunter at wide receiver, let him play some corner, right, and let him flow from that perspective. But I'm not putting him in the box. I'm saying this, hey, young man, do what you need to do what you want to do. And I'll say this one last thing to wrap up the Travis Hunter conversation, because you talked about his character. I didn't know this, Paige Dimakos, till a couple hours ago. This is a young man, one that's slated to be a top 5 overall pick. He's staring $20, $30, $50 million right in the eyes, right? All he has to do is, he probably could sit there and bubble wrap for the next 3 months and he's able to.
100%.
This young man in today's day and age in college football is said he's going to play in the bowl game, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm playing a bowl game to draw attention to my teammates. So all of you traditionalist college football guys that didn't want to vote for Travis Hunter because you had a problem with the way he acts, I want y'all the same guys that complain about the players sitting out of bowl games and want the whole football back. This is a guy that's a top 5 pick that's saying, I'm going out there and I'm going to war for my teammates.
He has absolutely nothing to gain from playing in that bowl game. I want to be as clear, literally, everything to lose.
I don't want him to play, right?
Me neither.
As for a young man trying to look out for what's best for him, you've done enough. You won the Heisman. You showed everybody you can play both sides of the football. You went to Jackson State, HBCU, overcame that, right? 5-star, overcame all the adversity, all the controversy, all the conversation surrounding around Deion, Shedeur, and yourself. I wouldn't even worry about playing. But he wants to go out there for his teammates, to draw more attention to his teammates.
And I think at the end of the day, he was emotional during his Heisman speech, talking about going out there for the last time to play with his team. And that matters. That's been lost in college football right now. Like, there are a lot of guys on those rosters who will never play games after college. And I've never met a football player that doesn't miss it. Not one. Doesn't miss the locker room. Doesn't miss being out there on the field. Doesn't miss all those times being together and the brotherhood that exists in football. And to me, that part of it is what makes college different from the NFL. And it's starting to lose that. And for its biggest star, okay, who has everything to lose, to do this, I think it could have great impact across the entire sport. And for anybody that's criticized him, you can shove it up your ass, literally. That's how I feel. Because the guy who didn't vote for him in the Heisman, he was voted 93% of ballots, okay, had Travis Hunter. I mean, 7% of total voters did not voted for him as number one. Didn't have him on the ballot, okay? In what world is Travis Hunter not a Heisman, at least at the ceremony? I could entertain some people voting for Ashton Genty. He had an unbelievable year. But to not have him on your Heisman voting and then to tweet about it, to brag about how the fact that you didn't have him on there. Yeah, I'm talking about Ian, homeboy, who is the Seattle Kraken news reporter covering professional hockey and voting on the Heisman Award. Hey, Heisman, we need to change that shit. Why on earth is somebody that is not working in football voting on the most prestigious award that exists in college sports? What are we doing? That makes absolutely no sense. I can't, and not only that, but then allowing them to brag about it afterwards, that has some undertones that I'm not comfortable with. And I'm tired of that. And it needs to be addressed because the Heisman Award is a fraternity. It involves money long term. We just saw Reggie Bush come back and have his opportunity to come back into that fraternity. It matters to be a Heisman winner. It matters. And so to not put him on your voting is to say that you don't understand football. That's as simple as I can say it. Because there is no world where Travis Hunter is not at that ceremony. There's not one. And it's inexcusable to me, Keith. It's totally inexcusable. And I cannot see that. It just needs to change. The Heisman voting needs to change. And I've told you, I vote on almost all the awards in college football. And I take it very seriously. The fact that somebody who's the Seattle Kraken radio guy, like, are we kidding? That doesn't, I saw that and I was like, that can't be real. Nah, proud Heisman voter and then proud bragger of the fact that he left Travis Hunter off of his Heisman voting. I don't like that, Keith. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I have a lot of things to say about that, Paige. First of all, give Draft Club the votes, right? Let us get in there. Let us vote. I promise you, we'll steer that thing right and we'll get it done. Secondly, this is everything I dislike about media, right? Because you get to do something, right? And then you almost get to throw a rock and hide your hand. And people say, oh, at least he admitted it and tweeted out. I want you to get on camera, right? I think you should be able to. You have to go to a press conference while Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Dylan Gabriel, right, and the rest of the Heisman winners ask you questions why you didn't do it and explain yourself, right? And I want you to answer in front of all of America why you didn't do that, because that's cowardly. You could easily cut your notifications off, and you really did that just to get more tweet bait, right? To grow your platform and trying to grow yourself. But I want you to be live and in color, right? And I want people to ask you a question so we can know that you're a full-blown idiot, right? You don't get to hide behind one tweet. And that's when people say they have a problem with media, it's those type of people, because you have an uncredentialed person doing idiot stuff with things that determine the future of people's lives at the end of the day. And that's the very unfortunate part. But Paige Dimakos, we're going to get this thing a little lighthearted, right? Have some fun. Talking about Monday's mock draft Monday, right? Well, guess what?
Oh, yeah.
Sanchez, me, right? I had a mock draft. And I had a couple picks, and I want to talk about a couple of them. And this is our segment. We might as well get this thing started, right? It's called Welcome to Draft Season, right? Welcome to Draft Season. We got a couple teams. Y'all have nothing to play for. Get ready for the draft. Let's start with this. So my first pick of my mock draft, I went Cam Ward to the New York Giants. Paige Dimakos, initial reaction from that.
Man, I hope this happens. I hope this happens. One, Cam Ward is a electric player. Right? We've watched him and we got to know him a couple of years ago when he was back at Incarnate Word, right? A couple of schools ago. Literally. And I'm super thankful that we got that opportunity to meet him at that stage, to then watch the growth and who he is now and the confidence that he has in himself. Because I talked to him and I interviewed him then, and he was much more shy and reserved than the bravado and the confidence that he has now. And I love that. Because that's what it takes to have success in New York. You have to be confident in yourself, and you have to not let you're currently watching a 41-year-old future Hall of Famer keep his mind right, which is very hard to do with Jets fans. And he's staying authentic to himself. And whether you like him or you don't, as long as you do that, you have a shot to have success. And I think that's where Cam Ward seems very sure of himself. And I think this for the Giants with Brian Daboll, man, I would love to see that offense, Keith. Like, that's probably the most, aside from the New York media and him as an electric football player, him with Brian Daboll seems like a really fun opportunity for a young guy, because Daboll's had a lot of success with quarterbacks, and I'd really like to see Daboll keep his job, because he didn't choose any of the things that have happened. That was Joe Sheen. And hopefully we can see him with his own guy.
Yep, 100%. That was well documented, right? That it was Joe Sheen. It was not the owner. It was not the...
It was Joe Sheen. It was Joe Sheen. It was Joe Sheen.
It was Joe Sheen. I'm going to go with this one, my next one, and this is my favorite one. So I don't even think I'm going to pass the rock, Paige. I'm going to keep this one for myself at the beginning. Shedeur Sanders to the Las Vegas.
Wait, hold on. Let me react, because I know how much you like this one, okay? I know how much you like this one. Okay, so first and foremost, something about him in a Raiders uniform just looks right. I can't tell you, like, sometimes things just, you have a gut instinct about something, just looks right. He's been tweeting after every Vegas Raiders loss. The internet's been paying attention to this and celebrating the moment. And I think when we talked about Dion and Shedeur in Dallas, Dion and Shedeur in Vegas is a much more fun opportunity. I'm all about that. But one, Mark Davis would love to stick it to Jerry Jones. Oh my God, this would be amazing. So I wanted to get all that off my plate before I let you take it, because I know you love this fit. I know you love this.
Yeah, and it's for all of those reasons. But I'm gonna start with the last situation, right? When you talk about Shedeur and Prime versus the Cowboys versus the Raiders, right? And you know the difference is Jerry Jones still wants to be politically correct, right?
Yeah.
Mark Davis don't give a damn, right? Do
No.
whatever the hell you want to. This is your city. Run it up. I don't care. Do what you.
His dad didn't care. Al Davis didn't care. Mark Davis definitely don't care. This is generations of not caring. It's a perfect fit.
What did they say? Just win, baby. That's all.
Just win, baby.
About. Just win. And so that's why. First of all, that's why I like it, because I think you talk about entertainment factor. It will be through the roof. Now let's talk about and get a little bit more detailed of who Shedeur is as a young man, right, and why I could work with Las Vegas. First of all, Las Vegas, the Raiders, go back to the Oakland Raiders, right? There's always been a franchise that kind of push the envelope a little bit, right? They rub people the wrong way. They embrace that tough, gritty, kind of asshole-ish, right? Kind of
They like being villains.
and villains and unapologetic about it, right? Who cares, right? And that goes all the way back to what Howie Long, you talk about 1970s, right? They that's just how they operate. And so I like that part of it. And then you move it forward to what Shedeur is now, and he's that type of guy. He's been under that pressure the whole entire time. And we always talk about quarterback fits with teams, right? And we say, hey, some guys need to go their ass to Green Bay. Some guys need to go sit in Kansas City, go your ass to Seattle, right? Stay the hell out the way. And then there's some guys where you're like, you know what? I could see this guy thriving. And prime example, Zach Wilson, you should have been a Utah guy, right? Stay in Utah, stay in the Northwest, stay somewhere where they not. Go to Nashville. Nashville would have been
for sure.
Wilson. But Shedeur, I think he's ready for that type of moment, right? He's ready for that type of pressure. And I think he's at the point of he understands who his father is, and not just the football player whose father is, but who his father is as a man. And he's always going to push the envelope forward. And Shedeur has just embraced it. Like, okay, cool. You put pressure on me, I'm about to show up, right? And so I like it for that. And on top of that, Shedeur is just a talented football player. He's used to putting the entire franchise on his back. And I think he'll have to do that with Las Vegas. He can see the light at the end of the tunnel. He was at Colorado when it's bad, and he's seen a turnaround. So he could believe things are going to get better also.
Shedeur to Brock Bowers seems like a nice combination.
For about 15 years, and shout out to Brock Bowers being a top 3 tight end in the NFL right now.
Literally.
Generational talent.
Yeah, just super talented. And I think the thing you brought up that I want to hit home is Vegas is another set of lights, right? They talk about the lights being bright in New York. The lights are very bright in Vegas too, right? And that means the temptations, the things off the field, all that stuff. Literally, Shedeur has been trained his entire life for this moment. He is uniquely prepared to handle this because Deion has shined the brightest lights on him his entire life. He knows how to handle this, and that is a very unique spot to be in. And the Raiders fan base is in a place they're starving for a quarterback, right? Because it's been a minute, right? Derek Carr was drafted a long time ago. That's the last time they had a guy that was their guy, okay? They've been piecemealing this together. Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, all these. This would be a big deal to bring him in. And I've been around Mark Davis. He's the perfect owner for this. He does not care. He has a bowl cut. He really does not care. He literally does not care what people think. His dad literally moved the team, gave a middle finger to the NFL. Like, this is a perfect situation. When I said it's not even villain, they're just authentically themselves. And that's Deion, and that's Shedeur. I need it, Keith. Honestly, I need it to happen. I need the silver and black to be drafting Shedeur Sanders. So, hey, Champ Kelly, you know what to do.
Okay? You're on the clock, baby. You are on the clock. And I'll even say this. When you look at the Derek Carr conversation, right, that was their guy. But knowing Derek Carr as a person, right, and who he's come off through the media, I don't think he was ready for that type of embracement of what the fans wanted, right? Like, he was talented, right? But sometimes you get those very unique situations where not only does the player talent fit, but the culture fit, right? And you've seen that in Chicago, right? Like, some of the players have drafted on the defensive side of the football, not only weren't they talented, but they fit the grittiness of what the Chicago Bears was in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
Currently, they
Yep.
fit the
Yep.
fan base, and I think that's what Shedeur is. I want to keep this thing going. We talked about pick one, pick two, pick three. I'm gonna go over, but we got to get to Chicago Bears. So I'm gonna just say Travis Hunter to the New England Patriots was who I had, and I think that could be a really good situation. I want to stop and pump the brakes on pick number four. Bryce Young, the Carolina Panthers. They get wide receiver from Arizona, Teodoro McMillan, Mr.
Yeah.
6'4", 220. Initial
Yeah.
reaction about that.
Uh, get my guy Bryce a dude. Get my guy Bryce a dude. Okay, I need this. I need T-Mac with Bryce, a big body, big receiver, a guy who I think this year, because of Arizona having expectations and not living up to them, there's like a lack of conversation about how good T-Mac is. He's excellent. He's a damn good football player. And this is exactly the type of guy that the Carolina Panthers need to add so that they put an arsenal around their young quarterback. If I see another draft cycle where you're not going all the way in to help your guy, I'm going to fly in to talk to Dave Tepper myself, okay? Because enough is enough. You did everything. You traded away all your picks to get to this point, and Bryce has been, after all the things that happened, he's had an excellent second half of the year. He's gotten much better. He's shown you flashes, and you need to put the right guys around him. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks going down. That was a weapon for him again. Now, he's without a lot of weapons, and T-Mac, man, maybe it's because I'm here in Arizona, but I love this kid. He's a phenomenal athlete, and I think the perfect wide receiver for Bryce Young, Keith.
Yep. And you know what happened? The Carolina Panthers, for 2 years in a row, they tricked us. They made us believe that they actually did something to help Bryce Young out, right? Then we get into the season, they take him out, they put the backup quarterback in, and then we look at it and say, this is still bad, right? Then you get the Eagles game, right? Where Bryce Young throws the ball to Xavier Legette, which I love Xavier Legette, think he's a hell of a football player. But now it's starting to add nuance to the conversation of, oh, Bryce Young a bust or not. It's, wait, hold on. What's his receivers again, right? You're still dependent on a couple undrafted free agents, right? You brought in Deontay Johnson and traded him out in the same season. So they're still devoid of a lot of stuff, Paige. So I look at it from that perspective and I say, yeah, they need a Teodoro McMillan. They need some more weapons. Adam Thielen is probably still their best wide receiver, which he is 40 years old, right? He need to come be a host on the draft club. It's about time to hang him up. And I look at it and I think it's a really good selection. But we coming right to you. Shot Town P, right? We got to get your boy some help, Caleb Williams. Last year, they did a really good job getting them offensive weapons, right? Signed DeAndre Swift, got Keenan Allen, drafted Roma Dunze, drafted Caleb Williams, right? Got them some good pieces overall. And we obviously know they had DJ Moore. But they need some offensive line help. So what I did was I said Paige Dimakos, right? Chicago Bears fan, likes the Oregon Ducks. And I said, guess what? Potentially the best offensive tackle in the draft is sitting right there, Josh Connolly. How do you feel about Josh Connolly to the Chicago Bears?
I love this pick, Keith. I was so happy to see this. Why? Because I'm tired of yelling at my television, watching insert quarterback. This isn't just a Caleb thing. This predates Caleb. This was Justin Fields, and the offensive line has been a problem for the Bears for multiple years. Ryan Poles, you're an offensive line guy, okay? I beg of you. I need somebody like Josh Connolly on the line. He is the perfect guy to add in, to be there. You've seen what he's been able to do for Dylan Gabriel this year at Oregon. You need that type of toughness. You need that type of bedrock on your offensive line. They've been turning and burning too many guys. I love this. Lock this in. Ryan Poles, I'm running to the draft stage to turn this card in. I'm just telling you right now, Keith.
I'll say this, and the Chicago Bears have tried, but per my scouting scale, right, and this is even when they drafted the guys, I thought they overdrafted and they missed, right? They missed on a couple of guys. Rolling in another season with Braxton Jones, good conversation for a young man that was an under-the-radar guy, right? But never did I feel like he should be my starting left tackle in the NFL. Tevin Jenkins, the young man from Oklahoma State, a lot of talk about him, Paige. I remember I was at LSU and we scouted him, right, when he was coming out of Oklahoma State. I just wasn't a fan of him. Liked him,
Yeah.
thought he was good, didn't think he was great and a next level guy. And then they wrapped it up in 2021 drafting 2023, I'm sorry, drafting Darnell Wright. And I thought Darnell
Yep.
was a good football player, but never did I think he was a top 15 pick. So the thing is this, maybe they need to go back to the drawing board, right? And saying, hey, we've swung at offensive linemen. We just kind of missed. But you can't miss
Yeah.
because you're on your second quote unquote generational prospect quarterback because Justin Fields was that same way. So I don't think Chicago Bears fans are going to let them off the hook with that
No.
same again
I,
of blaming it on the quarterback. This one is getting
I,
placed on y'all.
I can tell you that they will not, and I will be the loudest voice amongst them because we cannot afford to allow another quarterback to be not protected properly. This is something that needs to be addressed, and I think you gotta not only address it in the draft, you gotta address it in free agency too. But I like this pick a lot. I like this pick a lot, Keith.
Yep, no, 100%. Well, Paige, let's keep this thing going and flowing. Let's talk about the NFL playoff picture. Everything is shaking out right. We had some hellified games. We had the Lions versus the Bills. We had some Steelers and Eagles, right? The battle for Pennsylvania. Yeah, they both in Pittsburgh
Yeah.
and Philly.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good at my geography, right? I got that down pat. I am. I
Uh-huh.
told you, math was not my thing. Math and science, I'm out of here, right? But geography, because it doesn't change. It doesn't change. It stays the same. So I can remember that part. But let's talk about this. Both number one seeds, right? Talking about the NFC, the AFC, the status, right? Where do they currently stand? Week 14, they obviously the number one seeds, but I think both of these teams appear to be running on film. The Detroit Lions in the NFC, the number one seed. The Kansas City Chiefs, number one seed in the AFC. Let's start with the Detroit Lions.
So the Detroit Lions are suffering from the injury bug, man. This is a tough, and I called them the best team in the NFL 5 weeks ago, and I believe that, and I still think they can flirt with that, but they are one or two injuries away from being devastated, and they got to get healthy. They have to get healthy, and they have to gel at the right time. I will say the Bills game, I saw a lot of fight from that team. This is a game where they felt like they were out of it multiple times and still put themselves in a position to fight and win that game at the end. And that's why they will continuously be a team that I believe in, because when you don't allow yourself to get your teeth knocked in, you just don't do it. They refuse to lose. They refuse to quit. And I think that shows a lot about who that team is and the culture of that team. And because of that, I believe in them. And I will say, as weird as it sounds, I'm a little bit more confident in them than I am in the Chiefs. And it's because Patrick Mahomes got injured on Sunday, and it looked bad. And I know it says they're saying week to week, and we'll believe it until we see it. We've seen some of these injury things pop up in the past. But he got bent it was not pretty, right? It was not pretty. And it's not only Mahomes, it's also other players on this team. Rashid Wright, they've had a lot of injuries as well, and they've been winning in very lucky ways. You can't have Mahomes not at 100% and believe you're going to get away with that, because their offensive line is also struggling too. So these are two teams that are kind of hobbling into the playoffs, and that's not where you want to be. You want to be the hot team, Keith. You want to be the team that's getting hot at the right time, and these teams are not getting hot at the right time. Now, Detroit, I feel like this is a momentary spud. The Chiefs have felt like they're not hot the whole season. Nobody understands how they're winning these games, right? It just doesn't makes no sense. But today I saw Harrison Butker, on Sunday I saw Harrison Butker shank a 29-yard field goal, and I went, uh-oh, this is new, because they don't do stuff like that. The Chiefs Super Bowl champs, they don't do, and I know that sounds, but it matters. You can't miss 29-yard field goals when you want to win a because it matters big time.
Well, especially with the way kicking has going, and we've seen so many kickers spiral this year, right? You talk about Justin Tucker with the Ravens, and just some of the other kickers we've seen that just they miss one, and then they're going down the drain, and it leaves you like, hey, do we need to go pick up a free agent kicker? Because I agree, with you. This is the team that's the Kansas City Chiefs are a team that's going to win on the margins, right? Like you feel like if they get by and they advance, survive and advance, it's going to be by 3 points, 6 points, 4 points. They're not double digit blowing anybody out in the playoffs. I don't think we feel like that at all. To your point with Patrick Mahomes, right? When he kind of hobbled off, my initial thought was like, okay, this is what Pat does, right? This is kind of his gladiator moment. He limps off, and all hope is gone. Then he's gonna come back and throw 3 touchdowns. But then I looked at the score, right? And I'm like, okay, he's not chasing the daddy at the moment because he's playing the Cleveland Browns and they're already up by 14 points at that time. So
Yep.
I definitely think this injury could be concerning, and you just watch the way that he was bent up. Going to the Lions, my opinion on that situation, I'm looking at the Detroit Lions, and I think they're still primed to go. The 49ers, we both feel like are out of it, right? Like I think they're pretty much, I want to say that they're done, right? And so you feel like the Lions should have a clear path to getting some things done. And what I was most impressed with, you said that they didn't get their teeth kicked in. I think Buffalo came in and kicked their teeth in.
Yeah.
And but what I thought was more impressive is that they got off the mat, right? They were laying there. They said, "Oh man, we got punched in the face," but at least
That's
they
what I
got
mean.
up and started
Exactly.
fighting once again. And I think that was most impressive. And that Buffalo Bills team is rolling right now. So
I have to bring this up quickly, Keith, because our producer behind the scenes, shout out to Jet behind the scenes, who is a Lions guy, and he gave me an update on the injury information. And Dan Campbell said that Aleem McNeil and Carlton Davis sustained injuries that could be season-ending. That's devastating if that's the case. And they are not in a position without Aiden Hutchinson already, without these guys. They've Malcolm Rodriguez. You just, at a certain point, toughness and grit can only get you so far. You got to have talent out there. And even in their division, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are one game behind them. The Eagles are, if this team has to go on the road, I don't have a lot of confidence in Jared Goff outside. I just don't. If Goff's got to go to Philly, I don't feel good about it. I just don't. I've seen it. I've seen him when he was at the best version of himself, 2018, flashy Rams. When they went outside, he can't. He's Jared Goff is a different quarterback, man. He just is. And I've seen it too many times. And he's shown a lot. He's taken a lot of steps forward, but he's limited. He is. He's not. You are not going to win because of Jared Goff. You're just not. He's a good enough quarterback to get you there and get it done. But now with all these injuries, man, I'm really worried about this team. This was my pick. I felt so good about it, but sometimes you just get hit with the injury bug, and I wanted to make sure, shout out to Jet, our producer behind the scenes, who gave me the update, because that is not good. That is not good information for the Detroit Lions.
yeah, and I think and this is classic that the NFL is a war of attrition, right? Who can stay healthy at the end of the day? And it'll be interesting to pay attention to these two teams real quick. I want to be able to pick this. Let's pick one team from the NFC, one team for the AFC. Dark horse contenders.
Ooh, dark horse contender. Okay, so I feel like, and this is gonna pain me to say this, honestly, the Minnesota Vikings are a dark horse contender, and I'll tell you why. Nobody's even talking about them, and they're an 11-win team. Nobody. I honestly, I keep looking at their wins and losses and going, that's not right. Like, it literally just doesn't look right. And they just keep winning football games. And the reason I'm making them my dark horse is because of what it takes to win in the postseason. When your defense plays the way that they can play, and Brian Flores is a guy who deserves another head coaching job, and he's coaching his ass off in Minnesota. That's why I believe in that team. You've got a head coach as your defensive coordinator and a top offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell. This is unmatched, and they have, to me, the most dynamic player on offense in Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones, who has been underappreciated for 10 years. This is a dynamic offense. They've got playmakers everywhere, and they've got a MFer as a defensive coordinator. He is a dude. Brian Flores loves to blitz, loves to go after you, loves to make it painful, and they have a crazy home field advantage. Crazy. And I think that's why, as much as it pains me, the NFC North, I got to take them seriously. And I keep not taking them seriously, so I'm picking them now because I need to adjust for not taking them seriously all year long.
And listen, it's not only you. I think it's the entire NFL. When is the last time we cut on the TV and the Minnesota Vikings headline of saying anything right there? Or they the best team in the NFC? And listen, the only reason that they're not the number one seed or battling for it is because the Detroit Lions was on a heater, right? They only had one loss for the entire season. So I'm with you, Minnesota Vikings, somebody need to pay attention to. And I want to say this, that the Brian Flores thing, right? And we're going to have this conversation when we get into coaching season, but I'm going to go ahead and make this point is that it looked like Brian Flores, maybe he wasn't a quarterback developer, but he was damn sure a culture setter, and he understand how to build a franchise, right, and how to turn a culture around. Because you know what the Miami Dolphins look like they miss right now? MF, right?
Culture,
They look like they miss a motherfucker, right? They can come in there and
toughness.
be like, you know what? Somebody gonna punch us in the face, and we're gonna punch them back in the face. So hey, you sit there and you're like, maybe Brian Flores was right? Maybe he was trying to implement the right things that needed to be implemented in a city where there was so many distractions talking about South Beach, Miami, right? And I think you look back on it now, he's rolling in Minnesota, and I think he's probably equally, I guess you can say, responsible for their success as the head coach, right? The head coach called the offensive side of the football. He's calling the defense side of football, and the Minnesota Vikings are dangerous. Let's go to the AFC. I'm picking a dark horse. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Let's see. It feels like there's no dark horse team. I'm gonna just name, right? Chargers, Steelers, Ravens, Texans, Broncos, Bills, Chiefs, right? I think the reason why it doesn't feel as dark horse-ish is because of the star power quarterbacks on that side, right? It's hard to name the Ravens a dark horse when you got Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. When technically you could kind of look at that and go, it's the same. Chargers, Justin Herbert, Harbaugh. Steelers, Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson. Like it's Buffalo with Josh Allen. Like at a certain point, the AFC is stacked. It's hard for me to name any of those guys.
I got one.
Like, okay, you go, because I don't have one. I'm looking at it, and I can't name a superstar, a dark horse. That's what I'm having a tough time.
I told you don't count them out. Don't count them out, Paige. Dimakos. I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, boy.
Jamar Chase, don't you ever count
I'm with this.
baby.
I'm with it.
We in there. We listen. We talked about it, right? The rest of their schedule, it looks like they can get to 800, first of all, right? And then squeak into the playoffs. And I look at the back end of this, you have the Denver Broncos sitting in there. Would you bet on Bo Nix or would you bet on Joe Burrow, right?
Oh, it's not even close. Yeah, it's not even close.
The Chargers, which I respect them, right? But Tampa did just give them that work, right? And I think they're a year away. Like I said a couple episodes ago, I think that they're a year away. They're a 2025 team. That
Agreed.
I trust Cincinnati versus the Chargers at this point. And I know they played each other. And remember, that came down to who didn't want to win the game in a sense.
You want me to tell you why I can't choose them? They got no defense. Defense matters in the playoffs. And like Joe Burrow is playing MVP level best football of his life. Joe Shiesty. I'm sorry, Mr. Shiesty. I need to address you properly, Mr. Shiesty. Unfortunately, you got no defense, and you can't win in the playoffs without defense. So if they can get just a little bit better, just tiny bit better, I feel good about it. I think they're gonna get into the playoffs. I just don't have any. It's hard because I think we're basing this off of what they've been getting hot in the past. And that's fine offensively, but they're not the same defense, and that's tough for me when thinking about them going to Pittsburgh. No chance. I'm not going to pick them in those cold environments if it's snowing and shitty weather, Keith. It's just not.
I look at it like this, right? And I'm going to take the top seeds out. So Baltimore, the bottom seeds, I'm sorry. I'm going to take out Baltimore, the Chargers, and Denver, right? Because I feel like that's all the teams that's the extra, that's not the divisional winners. So you get Denver versus Buffalo. You substitute Denver for Cincinnati. You get a Cincinnati and Buffalo matchup round one. Buffalo don't want to see them, right? Then you go to the next week. You get a Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
You think that Buffalo team that just put up almost a 60 burger in Detroit is afraid? They ain't afraid.
Oh, they
especially not at home.
They worried about Joe Shiesty. They're not afraid. Joe been there before. Joe didn't sent Josh Allen home, I believe. So I'm pretty sure.
Not the same team. Not the same team.
It don't matter. It's the same quarterback. It's the same two wide receivers, and we know that he's playing at a good. All you need is.
I hope we get this.
Yeah,
I hope we get this matchup.
You need a football to bounce your way one time, and then the last one, right? You substitute Baltimore out. You go Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Houston Texans. All I'm saying is they could be disruptive. They get in the dance. Nobody wants to see them.
No, I'm with that. I'm with that.
So
with that.
Let's transition. I think we had some fun with NFL, but college football is a couple of days away. The first ever playoff bracket, right, where we get some home games. The games start on the 20th, so it's the 20th and the 21st, and this is going to be
this Friday.
Yep. it's going to be exciting. So I want to talk about the playoff bracket as far as let's do some superlatives. The
Yep.
best game. What's the best game you think that's out there?
The best game, I think this is an easy one. This is Ohio State and Tennessee. It feels like a national championship game. Literally. It feels like these are two teams that are both really good, evenly matched, don't know which way it's going to go, a lot to prove on both sides, superstars on both sides. This is a hell of a compelling, and it's not something we get because you got SEC and Big Ten. You got Tennessee going up to the shoe. I mean, does it get any better than that? Like, I'm like all in for that game. I think this is an easy one. That's the best game. Feel free to disagree with me, but you'll be wrong.
I like the way you set that up. I'm going to disagree with you because I'm right, and I'm always right.
Oh,
Clemson
boy.
versus Texas. Do you know the storylines that are in this? You got two 5-star quarterbacks, both from the state of Texas, right? Cade Klubnik left, 5-star guy, went to Westlake. He has the same school as Drew Brees, Nick Foles, right? The same high school has 2 Super Bowl winners, right? Cade Klubnik leaves, goes to Clemson. Clemson is kind of the redeemed story, right? They snuck into the playoffs, winning the ACC championship game, and then now they got to play Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is against the rope, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally. He's against the rope. The last thing the last thing that Quinn Ewers could afford is for Cade Klubnik to come back home, right, and play against these guys that he's really familiar with and take home the W. So I really do. I really like your Ohio State and Tennessee pick. That's probably a close second, but I think I made a more compelling argument for this Clemson and Texas matchup.
Okay. All right. I think they're both. I think I'll give you a concession on we tied.
A tie. I don't wait, hold on, because at the beginning of the podcast, you said that I play in the middle, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, let me be clear. I won. Yeah, I did not tie. There was no tying. I don't believe in ties. Ties are not for sports. Okay.
I just had to put
that's a separate podcast argument. We'll have that at a later time.
All right, cool. Let's look at this. The best matchups within these first round of the playoffs. What are you looking at?
This one, I think I'm most interested in Quinn Ewers, the quarterback, versus Clemson and that defense, right? And I think that is because Quinn Ewers has a lot to prove, Keith. This is where what are we going to see from Quinn? We've seen good, we've seen bad, we've seen Arch Manning, we haven't seen Arch Manning, and I know who Quinn is. I know who he can be. We both have a lot of faith in Quinn Ewers, and I want to see him rise to the occasion, rise to the moment, show up and show out against a really good team and prove to all the draft community and the college football community, I'm still that dude. I'm the dude who brought Texas back. Not Sam Ehlinger, Quinn Ewers. I brought Texas back because he did. And Arch Manning will stand on his shoulders because he's the guy who moved Texas back into the national narrative, the national conversation. And I want to see that Quinn Ewers. I want to see the dude who wears a chain and talks shit. That's the Quinn I want to see. And I hope to see that when he rises to the occasion against Clemson, Keith.
Yeah, no, and I love that one from a narrative story also, right? Just what is Quinn going to do? How is he going to bounce back? I'm going to go with, we flipping games, right? Because for this one, I'm going to go Tennessee run game versus the Ohio State defensive front, right? Because we talked about is Ohio State tough, right? And then they brought all of these guys back, your JT Tuamamalu, your Jack Sawyers, right? Some of the linebackers, the safety, Lathan Ransom. I want to see if they're going to be able to stop the run. There's a notion out there, and I think it's well-deserved, right, that the SEC is the superior conference in the trenches. So if people want me to be quiet about the SEC and how we're dominating the trenches, this would be a prime opportunity for a Big Ten team to show up and dominate because Tennessee is a team that their offense operates through their running back, Dylan Sampson. I'm looking for this Tennessee offense to go against this Ohio State defense.
JT Tuamalo, I need this, bud. I need it. I need it bad. I will personally make so many calls on your behalf for the draft. I can't even tell you, okay? I need this. I need this, big dog. Okay, show up in Ryan Day. Do not disappoint me. Not disappoint me.
Yep. All right, cool. Let's do this one. I like this one. This was going to be fun. Player with the most to prove.
This one I'm gonna stick with the same player that I just talked about. Quinn Ewers has the most to prove, most to lose, and most to prove, and that's because we are a part of the Draft Network. So this is not just about this game. This is about him going to the next level and playing at the next level. And there's been a lot of question marks about him. And I think if we were talking about the next round, my pick would be Carson Beck, right? But I'm talking about specifically these matchups. And with a draft lens, Quinn Ewers has got a lot to prove because there's a lot of calls for Arch Manning. And guess what? You win this game, you shut everybody up. You shut everybody up. And he's got the most. I look at most to prove with a lens of like most to lose. He's got a lot to lose. He's got a lot to lose. We're talking millions of dollars, a potential spot in the NFL. Like, he has a lot to prove. And I think this is the right way at home and environment for him to prove it. And damn, I hope it happens. But that's not how it always goes. And I know this kid's been through the ringer because I can't imagine having to look behind my back and see, oh yeah, it's Arch Manning. The Manning with culture. Dear God, how did that happen? Yeah, how did we let a Manning have culture and the ability to run? I'll never understand, right? And that's for Quinn. I feel for him because the situation was not handled well by Sark, and unfortunately, that put him in a tough spot. And I hope he bounces back. I hope this time off has helped him get himself into a position because he's got a lot to prove, Keith. He's got a lot to prove.
Yep, and for everybody that don't know, Arch Manning was born and raised in New Orleans. That was just a fun fact that I had to put
Here
out
we
there.
go.
But
that's why he has culture. That's why he has culture. We know.
That's why he a trendsetter, right? I keep saying it. But I'm gonna go with my most approved. You ready? 1, 2, 3. SMU. Y'all got the most approved, right? We let y'all in.
As a team.
We kick South Carolina out. Y'all better show up. Y'all better show up. And I'm talking about this better be a 7-point or less game. I don't want to hear they fought hard. I don't want to hear they came back in the second half. I don't want to hear it's a valiant effort. I don't want to hear, oh, that's good for SMU, the small school. Nope. We bounced all the big boys out to give y'all your opportunity. You had 3 weeks to prepare. Now you better show up, right? And show that you was deserving of not having Alabama in, of not having South Carolina in, of not having Ole Miss in, of not having the number 1 overall pick in my draft, Cam Ward in. So SMU, y'all better show up.
Please, because otherwise he's going to be obnoxious on this podcast.
I'm going to be.
And you know what? It'll be deserving. SMU, and this is not only SMU. They're carrying the torch for all these kind of schools.
All of them. Yeah,
right?
I'm done. I am done. If you're a small
Yeah.
school and you did not come into the program ranked top 25, top 20, and I know that your team is littered with a bunch of NFL draft prospects, I'm out on it. I'm not buying into it no more. Y'all tricked me.
Y'all wanted it. And guess what? It's a tough. I don't like the draw for them. Happy Valley, top 5 environment to have to go play on the road, cold weather. Listen, SMU in Dallas is not Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. I'm going to tell you that right now. That is not environment-wise. They've never been tested like this. So let's see. I hope they rise to the occasion. I hope they do.
Well, I think this is a perfect segue to the coach with the most to prove, and I'm going to go ahead and go with mine. That is Mr. James Franklin from Penn State. I just talked all that smack. I need you to back it up. You have to back it up. You better not lose to SMU, right? You better not be the Penn State, right? One of the teams that's known for linebackers, hard defense, tradition, right? One of the better quarterbacks that's on the rise in Drew Aller. 2 really good running backs that's going to get drafted. Tyler Warren, another one. Draft pick in himself, right? You better not lose to SMU, right? You better not have this team come from Dallas, go up to Happy Valley, like Paige Dimakos just said, and you take a loss at home. That better not happen. So the coach with the most to prove has to be James Franklin.
Yeah, they're the 2 coaches that have the most to prove are both in the Big Ten. And you took care of the James Franklin conversation, so I'll bring this home with the Ryan Day conversation. Ryan Day, if you don't win this game, you're not the head coach at Ohio State anymore. Plain and simple. That loss at Michigan, there's a good chance you have to win multiple games for you to keep your job, right? And you are at home. You're at home at the shoe. This cannot be ugly. You got to take care of business. You have to show up. You have to show out. Your team has to be disciplined, and you have to play Big Ten football. You wanted all that smoke. You talked about it after last year's game against Notre Dame. You were pissed about what Lou Holtz said. So guess what? You have an opportunity to show us that you are tough. Because what I see is a lot of finesse. I see Michigan with toughness and Ohio State with finesse. So show us. If you think you're that tough, we better see it against Tennessee because guess what? The SEC does have boys on the line. And if you don't show up, you will be shown out. And you will not have a job anymore. It will be done. And quite frankly, it'll be deserved. And I think there's a good chance that he could still lose his job even if he does win this game. But if you go win handedly against Tennessee, ooh, the noise is going to get much quieter. Ain't nobody going to be talking about Ryan Day in Michigan if they go take care of business at home against Tennessee. Nobody. This is the best possible situation for him because so quickly the narratives and the storylines are going to turn over for him. They win this game, it's going to be on to the next. And guess what? They're going to be facing Oregon. And ooh, the narrative's going to flip really quickly. All of a sudden, everybody's going to love Ryan Day. So, yeah, I think this is an easy one. Most to prove, Ryan Day. Most to prove, Ryan Day. Keith, I get to wrap the show up because you're not here. So I get to say goodbye. Any parting thoughts from New Orleans? Any parting thoughts from New Orleans for the people?
I mean, Super Bowl is coming. Mardi Gras is a couple of months away, right? So book your trip to all the people listening.
Is this a promo for New Orleans? I mean, my God. Hey, visit neworleans.com. We need a sponsorship because I can't let this happen any longer, okay? But for Keith Sanchez, I'm Paige Dimakos. You've been watching The Draft Club for Players Only.